Hey everybody, I'm Pete Collins, and let's take a look at this course right here.
Welcome to George Ward Park. I'm Tom Monroe, Course Pro, PDJ number 33. This is the most popular course in town. Park in the middle, 9 holes on one side, 9 on the other. Home of the super tournament every year called the Mega Bowl. This year we had 250 players, and this is also the home for Wednesday and Sunday afternoon activities.
Okay, welcome to George Ward, and this is hole number 1. That starts out pretty straightforward. You're going to have a basket back in 339. That is hole A. It's surrounded by rocks. The closest one is going to be hole B at 224, right down the middle. And then in between is hole C, that's at 279, slightly on the left. There's also a mando on the right and a second mando later on that I'll point out as we go. So now, simple drive right down the middle. Keeping in mind that mando tree to the right. Just place something right up here is going to leave you in great position for this first basket. Now also you could think about using these rocks in this ditch as a great way to stop your disc so that you get close to the basket but maybe have an ace run at it if you have the arm for it. Now here we look back at the tee, we see it's a downhill with a slight slope, but overall a pretty straightforward throw. Next we're going to look at the middle position, not forgetting there's a mando tree back there as well if you're throwing longer. We come under the bridge and look at the middle placement here, and the thing you have to be aware of with this is that you're snuggled up pretty close to this road, which is OB. The good news is that this hill will help funnel things back down to the basket, but you need to be aware. Watch out for that road. Now here we'll take a look back at the tee, back up the hill. It's a pretty straight shot if you're a right-hander that'll fade to the left right at that basket. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem for right-handers. And this final one is guarded by these 2 rocks. You have to have a pretty good throw to get down here, and those rocks often can deflect your disc. But other than that, the hill on the right will bring you a nice little bump into the basket that can help snuggle in there if you've got the arm. And that's it for hole number 1. Let's head to hole number 2. Hole number 2 is pretty straightforward, with A being at 338, B 365, and C 281 right down the middle. Now from the tee pad, you'll see hole A is right down the middle being guarded by a tree slightly to the right of the basket. B is going to be up the hill to the left, and C is going to be right down the middle. On your tee shot, the biggest thing you have to be aware of is this tree to the right, because once you get past it, it's pretty wide open. Left-handers might want to keep an eye out for this tree on the left, but other than that, just want to think about maybe the sloping ground heading down the hill that could cause a bad roll if you hit a rock or a root. Now if we take a look back to the tee from the basket, it's a pretty straightforward throw. Now we see tree that is going to guard basket A, and so you've got to decide, do you want to come before the tree or after the tree with your throw? Keep in mind there are a lot of roots here, so you might want to think about a little softer landing. Also, because of the slope of the ground and how wide open it is over to the left of the tree, a lot of people decide to take this route into the basket. Now the final basket up here, B, is uphill a little bit more than you think, and so it takes a little bit more throw than you might imagine when you first play. A lot of times folks will try to cut off the distance by throwing down the right side here, but do keep in mind that the road is still OB. And that is hole number 2. Hole 3 has a basket set for 326, 362, and 291. all with the downhill slope, so judge accordingly. From the tee pad, you'll see basket A right down the middle, basket B will be over to the right, and basket C will be over on the left. Your main goal when you tee off is to try to get by these 2 pine trees that act as goalposts, and then navigate by these branches that are overhanging. Now if you're playing to basket C over here on the left, just be aware of how mean these trees are that like to reach out and grab your discs. So you want to maintain good speed control and angle of your disc so that you can get around them. But be aware that if you throw it too hot, since it's coming downhill, you could end up going by the basket and ending up in the ditch or the road that is right behind us here. It's not too far off from that basket. Now basket A is sitting right in the middle, got a lot of dance floor, and this is a fun one to run at if you've got the arm, because you've got a little bit of room to play without getting into too much trouble. So if we look back at the tee pad, it's pretty straightforward. However, as those trees are growing, the alley is getting smaller and smaller. And finally, basket B is tucked back here. That makes it harder for a right-hander unless he's got a good turnover shot or wants to go up over those trees. But once again, you've got to watch your speed and control so that you don't go by the basket and end up in the road. And that's hole number 3. Okay, 4 has a position at 217 for A, 275 for B, and 325 for C. Now if we look at the tee, basket A is pretty straightforward right there in the middle. B is fading off to the left, and C is a pretty good distance back there, even farther to the left. Now the tree on the left here can come into play in just about every one, but for this first one it's pretty wide open. You just need to work on your speed control so you don't go back in these bushes back here, because anything back here in these bushes can be big trouble trying to get out, so try to avoid them at all costs. You've got a pretty good landing area here. You've got a couple rocks to watch out for, but as you can see looking back at the basket, it's a pretty straightforward throw. Now we'll take a little bit of look over on the right side here, and then we'll fade over and see the next basket. Remember, try to avoid this jungle on the right at all costs, because it will knock down your disc and put you in jail. Now as we take a look from the basket back to this tee, we can start to see how this big tree comes into play. Hey, let's freeze that dog right here. Alright, take a quick look at the tee pad, and now let's pick up again. Go dog, go. Alright, so it's a simple hyzer around that tree if you've got enough arm, otherwise you could try to sneak under it. And finally we've got the longest one back here, keeping in mind that during tournaments they could designate these walkways as out of bounds, so you always want to be aware of that. Here, if you have a big arm, you could do a big hyzer around that tree, otherwise you might want to try to slide it underneath the branches and do a low screamer in here. But that is hole number 4. Hole number 5 is the longest hole on the course, with A being at 604, B being at 407, and C being at 553. From the tee pad, the longest position is tucked back up in the bushes. Closest one is right here down the middle, and C is right in between those two. Now this is the hole that everybody likes to see how far they can throw, because it's pretty much wide open. However, you do have to keep in mind that there is a walkway on both sides that could be designated OB at certain times. Now the shortest basket is an elevated basket, so just be aware when you're putting that you might want to aim a little bit higher. Other than that, it's just a fun hole to try to work on your throws. Now once we pass the short basket here, we're going to look at the middle basket, and it starts to narrow down in here, and once again, anytime you get into these bushes back here, it can be jungle, and you really don't want to get in there if you can avoid it. Now that big tree can come into play depending on where your approach shot lands before this one, so just keep that in mind. And then finally, the last basket is sitting up on the hill in this little cove, and as you can see, there's not a lot of landing spaces, and a lot can get in your way. So this last basket can really be frustrating. Here's a look back towards the tee, and then once you finish, you're going to have a nice little hike back through the woods to get you to the next tee pad. And that is hole number 5. Okay, hole number 6 has pin placement at 286 on the right, 352 straight ahead, and 310 on the left for hole C. There is hole A, it's just over the hill there. B is straight on ahead past that tree, and C is tucked on the left, guarded by a lot of trees. So the first thing you got to be aware of is get by this big old tree on the right. It's amazing how many discs it hits. You're going to come right down the middle here, and then it's dealer's choice of which basket you're going to. Will you cut this gap, or will you come around the back side here and have it turn a little harder towards the disc? Or will you be going up the hill with a hard hyzer shot? Or will you be going straight ahead to basket B? Now, if you're going to basket A, just be aware the slope down the hill towards this walkway can be treacherous, especially if the walkway is out of bounds. Also, watch those bushes back there behind it, because they are jail. Now, you've got a couple gaps there on the right, or you could try to come around the left and come down the sidewalk. Just be aware of the trash can, and the walkway can be hazardous. But there's the gap back to the basket, is the one on the right that most people play. Now, if we come back up the hill, we're going to look at basket C. Notice all the trees that are guarding this area up here, and the basket is tied up against the bushes up here at the top of the hill. Good news is you don't risk running by it too much, but if you go even a few feet by the basket, you can often have your putt blocked by branches. As you can see here, even just trying to get near the back of the basket, I have to go around these bushes that are almost leaning into the basket. Now here's a look back at all the trees that are guarding it. There is a little gap right there that you can come through if you have a low screamer. Now if we come back down the hill, you can decide whether you want to come through this gap straight ahead, not that tree, but on the left side of this big tree, which is a little bit more wide open, or if you're going to come on the right side here and just try to avoid the jungle bushes on the right that are jail. The problem with this landing is there's a lot of rough gravel here, and so your disc can sit up and roll back into the jungle. So you just got to be a little careful of how you land up here. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward drive right down the middle, avoiding a couple trees. We'll take a look back at the tee, and there is hole number 6. Okay, hole number 7 is another fun driving hole. And we've got 4 baskets here, A 336, B 389, C 345, and D 343. From left to right, A is back there behind those trees. B is going to be the longest one all the way in the back. C is going to be over here to the right, straight ahead. And D is pretty much straight ahead too, but guarded by more trees. So off the tee pad, you're really going to try to rip it to get advantage of the elevation change. Come through here. Discs have gotten stuck in that power line, so just be aware it's there. Now when you come up here, obviously you're trying to think about, do you go over or under? Most folks try to slide under these trees. The branches tend to like to grab your discs, so just be aware of disc control. Now from basket C is the most open from the tee pad, but you can see that big tree on the left will block things, and you just got to have good control coming in here to get it straight and slide on in there. Now let's get D. I believe D, I'm losing track of my baskets, is pretty much straight ahead too, but you've got to get it under these trees and have it slide on in here to have a chance of getting close to the basket. Then we're going to come over to basket A. And it's got a good little dance floor here, but you've got to get by all these trees right here in the front. And if you're coming in from the side, you just got to get it underneath those other branches and have it avoid the walkway, hopefully, so it doesn't stop your disc, get you up close. And then finally, basket B is the farthest one back here. It's got a pretty good dance floor, putting green area, but you've got a lot of trees you've got to work through to get back here. And it's a pretty long throw, so if you get back here, you should be pretty happy with your throw. Notice you've got to get through a lot of stuff to get back here, but there's the shot back to the tee. And this is hole number 7. Okay, hole number 8 has 4 pin placements, actually an extra one, A 349, B 262, C 341, and D 354. If you're looking at them from the tee, A is straight back in the back surrounded by some bushes, B is the shortest straight ahead, C is tucked over on the right behind the trees, and there's actually a secondary pin placement there. And D is over on the left, guarded by a lot of trees. So the road is not out of bounds. It's no longer used, so you can play it. Just be aware that it may beat up your disc if you land on it, chew it up a little bit. And there's some ditches here, just can make your footing a little bit weird. But if we backtrack and we look at basket number D, we're going to come around here, and you're going to have to try to get under those trees and maybe aim for these little trees right here. Because as you can see from the basket, which is that little orange dot right there, you don't have very big windows to get in here, so you really want to try to get it under those first set of trees and up to these little trees right here to have any shot at the basket. These are pretty much your two windows, either right or left of that tree right in front of you. Now if we get back into the middle, this is just a straight shot from the tee. Watch out for the ditch. And plenty of landing room here. This green is easy for this basket, so as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward shot back to the tee. Now if we take a look at the longest one, it's got an uphill climb, so it's going to take a little bit more arm. Watch out for the bushes in the back, and there is a chain link fence to the right that if you go over, it is out of bounds. Can be a little sticky trying to putt from over on those bushes. Now here's the alternate to C, which is a little bit farther back now, cut into the bushes. You can see it's just tucked right back there, but it's pretty much straight on back from the tee. Where this orange post right here is the original C position, which is just a turnover shot for our right-hander or a nice flick. But that's it for hole number 8. Hole number 9 finishes uphill, which means a little bit more power on your throws. A is at 323, B 348, and C the closest at 263. But remember, these can be deceptive because of the elevation change. A is straight ahead, blocked a little bit by that tree on the right. B is straight ahead but tucked behind that tree all the way up top, and C is the closest one right out in the middle of the fairway. From the tee pad, watch out for these bushes on the left and that tree, and then this tree on the right will also grab this as you throw out into the fairway. The wall on the left, if you go over the fence, is OB, but oftentimes that wall and fence will help knock your disc back closer to the basket, so it can actually be a big help if you get a little too much hyzer on your throw. Now here's a look back at the tee. It's pretty straightforward. And then we're going to turn and look at basket A. There's a Mando sign, not necessarily for this basket, but for the next one. Now granted, it is, if you're putting, you're still going to need to go Mando on this side of it, so just be aware of that. But once again, it's pretty much straight up the hill. But the Mando is because this basket here, C, is close to the parking lot, and they want to keep you from hitting cars, but it also narrows things down and makes the putting area a little bit tight, so you want to have a good controlled upshot to finish up hole number 9. Hole number 10 has a pin placement at 220, 274, and 264. They play to the left, a little bit behind that tree, straight ahead at the far placement in the back, and to the right, tucked up in the trees just a little bit. Now slightly uphill once you get over this little crest. It's a fun little hole because if you can make this gap, miss these trees, and watch these limbs, your disc can fall off to the left and snuggle up right to this basket. There's a lot of room to play here. You really don't have to worry about the fence being OB on the left, but it's a nice, fun little shot. Great way to start out if you're starting on hole number 10. All right, then we come back a little bit farther for longest position, which all you've got to watch out here is cooking a little too hard and getting into the bushes behind it. But otherwise, it's a straight shot right down the middle. Watch the overhanging branches, and you're going to be in good shape. Remember, it is a bit uphill, and so it will slow down your disc and stop it before it gets too far, hopefully. And then finally, a little bit of a turnover shot from the tee pad if you're right-handed. Same thing, it's got a nice uphill slope that's going to help slow down your disc, and that's hole number 10. Hole number 11 has 4 pin placements, 355, 380, 272, and 186. So a lot of variations here. So if we start out, the farthest one is tucked back there behind the trees. Then we've got another one actually a little bit farther back there, about the same distance. And then this one closer in the middle fairway. And then the very close one is just off to the right, right down there. So from the tee pad, you're going to just for this hole right here, you're going to just throw a nice little shot. Maybe if you're right-handed, a little flick shot or a little turnover shot. Just have to watch out for this ground. The slope will take your disc and throw it over into the bushes. And as you've seen on a lot of the other holes, it can be tough if your disc gets into the bushes. Other than that, it's a fun little simple shot right from the tee pad. Now if we go back up to the middle of the fairway, you've got a couple choices of getting around these trees. You can go left or right, but you're really just trying to navigate your way under those branches to get up here into this middle section. A lot of folks will throw a hyzer around and come through that gap over to the left by the basket to snuggle up here into this area. Be aware of the fence can be out of bounds, and the bushes off to the left can really be hard to get out of. Now we look back at the farther position. There is a mando tree right there to the right that's going to force you to come through this section right here, and it's a tight little tunnel, and those trees do like to grab discs. Tough little landing area because of the roots and the rocks, but if you have a gentle approach, you can get in here and have a nice easy putt. It's pretty straightforward. I find this last basket right here can be a little trickier because it is a slight downhill and you've got a couple extra trees and roots that can take your disc and send it beyond this little spot right here where the orange marker is. But that is hole number 11. Hole number 12 is a downhill hole with A at 332, B 247, and C 264. From the tee, A is going to be the farthest down there to the right, over some bushes, past the trees. B is going to be to the left, around some trees. And C is going to be right down the middle, but you've got to watch out for those 3 trees part way down. Now as we come down the hill, you can see it's pretty tight. You got to watch the limbs and watch the tree trunks. When we get right about here, we're going to be able to see the basket for A right down between those 2 bushes. But we're going to look at hole number B. I know it's not a number, but B over here on the left. You've got to navigate through the trees, maybe use the slope of the hill to get it to come down here, use the gravel to slide down into this wide open green area here to be able to make a good putt off of your drive. Now if we come back to the middle, we're going to see the next pin position is this orange pole right here. This is C right down the middle. And if we take a look back up to the tee, we're going to see that it's really those 3 trees right there that act as kind of your guardians to this basket. But if you can get a good shot down the hill, miss those trees, you're going to have a nice spot to land on right there. And finally, this last one has to get over those bushes once you get past the trees to get into this area here. So it takes a little bit of a maneuver to get down into this area here. The elevation change does help carry it down here, but there's a lot it has to navigate, especially those 4 bushes right there in front of the basket. And that is hole number 12. Hole 13 has 3 positions at 251, 294, and the longest at 425. When we stand up on the tee pad, we can see A is going to be straight ahead, B is going to be off to the right, and C is going to be over to the left across the bridge. Now with A, you're going to have to be pretty technical, even though it's short because of the slope of the ground, the walkway, which will be out of bounds in a lot of tournaments, and then the creek with water that can cause your disc to be OB if it's surrounded by water. It's a very technical shot. Most people land over here on the left, but if you're brave, you can land on this little swash of grass and have a nice birdie attempt. But remember, everything over here is going to want to run down into the creek. And so you end up getting a good throw that just trickles down here and leads to OB strokes. There is the other basket over there that we'll look at in just a minute. But next we're going to keep on traveling this way and go past this bridge over to C, the longest basket. Now remember, if it's for a tournament, something like that, there can be other designated OB spots like that water as well. Just have to be aware of. So you can really try to go for it, but you could get penalized if your disc lands in the wrong spot. Pretty open dance floor here with just being aware of the water back behind the basket. But you got to navigate those trees to get in here. And here's a look back towards the basket. As you can see, there's a lot that can get in your way as your disc comes around to get over that bridge. Now we're going to walk back over to the final basket, which is usually where the basket tends to be for most play, and it's wide open and a fun shot to shoot right through here. You're going to come from the tee pad, and it's a natural hyzer into this pin placement, but it is deceptive, and most people end up falling into the creek because they're not throwing it as far out as they think they need to. Looking back at the basket, it seems like a pretty straightforward shot, and it is, but a lot of times those trees will knock it down, or you will end up in the creek. But that is hole number 13. Hole number 14 is an uphill hole, with A being 192, B being the farthest at 345, and C being 267. From the tee pad, A is going to be up there just past that tree, B is going to be the farthest, tucked back in the trees, and C is going to be just over the hill, guarded by one big tree. Now there's also a mando on this tree up at the top of the hill you have to be aware of. So now if you can get by these trees on the left and then avoid this leaning tree, you're going to have a nice natural hyzer into the basket. The ground slopes down, so it helps kind of cushion your shots in if you're throwing a hyzer, so you might want to throw a little bit harder so that you've got a good ace run, but you're not going to worry about going too far past the basket if you've got the arm for it. If you're going to go to B, we're just going to swing around here, B or C. We're going to look at C first, and it's just simply guarded by this big tree to the left of the basket. However, if you're a right-handed thrower, your natural hyzer will bring it in, and the tree should not come into play much. But with the roots and the couple trees around the basket, depending on where you land, they could interfere with your putt a little bit, but otherwise, it's a straightforward shot. Now finally, the longest one is going to be B, that is tucked back here in this group of trees. And you're really going to kind of have to set up your shot to have a good approach on your second shot, unless you've got a super big arm that can get back here over the hill. There's just a lot of stuff in the way, so you want to set yourself up so you have a nice opportunity for your second shot. Now the other good news is that if you want to play an extra 6 holes, you can just come over here to the right after you finish this and jump on the back 6 that is kind of hidden 6. Now, I would recommend coming in the fall or winter, unless you're going to bring long pants and bug spray, because there's a lot of poison ivy and stuff back here. But it's a fun 6 to play, and it's an extra little course tucked in the back of 14. Hole 15 is a downhill shot from a higher elevation. You have an A at 401, B at 235, and C at 375. With most people's favorites being the short one over the creek just to the left. But we're going to start out. A is going to be tucked over on the very right corner. B is going to be the favorite through those trees or around those trees over the creek. And C is going to be a straightforward shot right down the middle with a lot of distance. So now when we take off, if you want to get over that creek, you can either come this way or try to cut through the trees on the left. But it's a simple right-handed hyzer that has been made a little bit more difficult with these pine trees growing up here. But there is water in this little creek right below us, but otherwise you've got a nice, easy dance floor to have your disc land on. Now we're going to move over to basket A, which is tucked back here on the right-hand side. There's a lot of room in this fairway, but because of the trees early on to get over here, it's hard to shape your shot to get around the trees and then have enough carry to get down here. So you're going to have to really kind of work it from up on the hill to get a good approach to this shot. So now you're going to see it's pretty wide open down that right-hand side, but all these trees on the left just really want to knock down your disc. And so there you go. There's your look back to the tee, but you've got elevation change and a lot blocking your way back up to the tee. Now we come back through here, and we're going to take a look at the final basket. Is going to be tucked right here, right up next to the creek, which means that you can run at the basket from up on the hill if you've got the right shot, but you really got to work on your distance and speed control, because it's going to want to sneak on in here and fall into the creek. And that is hole number 15. Hole 16 has 3 pin placements, A 191, B 329, and C 362. When you step up on the tee pad, you'll be able to see hole A is just tucked right there on the right around those trees. B is going to be even farther around those trees and bushes on the right, and C is going to be straight ahead almost to the baseball field. So now we take a nice easy shot through these two trees and let it fade off over here to the right to this first basket. This is a great shot for a right-handed sidearm or a left-handed thrower. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward right here from the tee pad right into this basket. Now you do have to be aware those bushes right there can be deadly. Your disc can get underneath them and slide to the other side, and you get stuck. Now we move on back to the second basket here, and this is the B basket, but it's tucked back a little bit to the right, so it's almost straight ahead, but with just a little turn, and you just got to control your shot a little bit, get around those bushes and have it fade off right into this basket. You can be in good shape. There's a little valley or bump right behind it, but it really does not come into play. It's not standing water. It will actually help stop your disc to get you closer to the basket. And then finally, the longest position is right up here next to the baseball field. The fence is OB, but oftentimes it can be a great backstop, so you can really run and gun at this basket and have it help you out. And so then we're going to take a look back towards the tee. It's just grip it and rip it to get it down here. And that is hole number 16. Hole 17 goes uphill, and it has A position at 281, B at 166, and C at 254. Now from the tee pad, you're going to see A is straight on back up the hill, slightly to the left. B is going to be the closest one around that tree, and C is going to be up on the hill as well, but it's dead straight on. Now we're going to take off, and for A, it really is a sidearm if you're right-handed, or a turnover. It's a fun little shot, but it can be frustrating because it's so close. If you don't have good speed and good control, you miss out on a great birdie opportunity here if you've got the arm for it. Looking back to the basket, you can see it's just right around that tree and right up here. Pretty good landing area, couple roots, but you don't have to worry too much. Be aware that over here on the left, we call it the pit of despair. If you drop off that hill, it's deadly, so you do not want to go too far left. Otherwise, you're going to try to split the field goal to come to B right here, and it's just simple shot up the hill. I say simple, but you've got to give it a lot of juice to get it up here from the tee pad. But if you can get through those two trees, you're going to be in great shape. And then finally, we're going to turn and we're going to look at B is tucked over here, getting close to that fence. The fence and over is OB, and it's just deadly over there. So you want to keep up on the top of this hill. Watch out for the little slope right there. The good news is if you hit the hill, it will usually stop before it jumps over the fence. So a lot of times you'll be putting from down on this right side over here. But that is hole number 17. Hole 18 has 3 pin placements, A at 273, B at 228, and C at 308. Now I apologize for not moving that weed before I took that picture, but let's step up on the tee pad. And first thing is there's a Mando right here on the right that you got to get by. Basket A is tucked over to the right, basket B is straight ahead, and basket C is slightly to the right, really straight ahead, but farther back up the hill. Now when you get past this Mando and these first 2 trees on the left, it's really a decision of do you go through the gap on the left or the gap on the right. A lot of times folks will do a bigger hyzer on the right-hand gap over here to come over here to basket B and land in this area. Now, ignore those guys up on the left-hand side teeing off. That's for another hole. The gap is really straight ahead, right through there. And then we're going to come back and look at basket A. There's a lot of green around here, so as long as you can get out of the trees, you're going to have a good look at the basket. So it's a great way to finish the round as long as you make it out of the trees. Here we're going to look back at this basket to the tee, and you can see if you get through those trees and then have it just drop off, it can curl up around this basket fairly easily. And then finally, we're at the longest basket here that is really kind of a straight-on shot, but you've got to navigate those trees to get down in here. But with a slight uphill slope, the disc will like to check up, and you really won't run a risk of throwing too far past the basket. And so there you go. That is hole number 18. Thank you so much for being with me, and I hope you enjoy your round. Well, there you go. I hope that helps you with this course, and I hope to see you out there really soon.